Alright, so we're going to be doing SecureCode1, which is a PHP box with blind SQL injection and insecure file upload, and it's all found through code review. So for this box, you have to download the source code at, I hope I'm remembering this right, source code zip. Did I do? Alright, so I'm going to download it and move it to my current directory, unzip it, and then I'm going to open that folder with Visual Studio Code because it is the best. It's the best tool for code review in my opinion. What did I name my directory?
Have you used Atom before or Sublime?
I have not used Atom, and Sublime, I don't think searching is as good.
Okay.
Fuck Sublime. There's the deal. I use the deal, but I might.
You don't like
I
Sublime?
like Visual Studio Code. I always go back to Code, but
Mhm.
I always try and find another one to play with. And lately, I've been playing with Atom, and it's pretty good.
Is it? I
Yeah.
haven't used it yet.
Tim Gang.
Yeah, they got some pretty nice package installs.
Have to check that out, I guess.
VSC is like OG, right?
Yeah, right.
It is a bit slower than Visual Studio Code though, and contains more things. But yeah, OG, BS, yes, yeah, Visual Studio Code. It's like Vim or Nano. So, yeah, that's an opinion.
Alright, so after we get the code repository open, first thing you notice is db.sql, which, you know, is only here for the box, but it's their entire database, which we will be using later. And then obviously we see index.php, so we can confirm it's a PHP site. And then from there, I open up search, and the first thing I do is I start looking for how SQL is passed. So normally you do like select star from, and that'll give you like basic SQL syntaxes. So for this, we at least see it's going to be passed with data equals for the most part. Normally they keep it the same for the variables, so I'm going to go off the assumption that it's always going to be data. And the other thing we see is there's some sort of filtering happening called MySQLi real escape string, which if we Google this, we will see it just basically removes any string characters. So single quotes, double quotes, semicolons, which obviously makes our SQL injection a little more complicated, since normally to do an SQL injection you're going to do a single string to, or a single quote or double quote to escape. So then basically, I mean, this isn't that many, right? We have, what is it, 13 results, so that's pretty easy to read through all of these. And the only one that really stands out is under viewItem.php. And the reason why this one stands out is because here we see there's an ID variable, which is assigned the escape string, so we won't be able to do single quotes or double quotes. And it's passed in with the get parameter. So if you don't know, a get parameter is basically just the question mark equals. So like in this isn't the correct page, but here it's ID, so a get parameter would be like question mark ID equals. That is what a get parameter is. Oops. This is what a get parameter is. And the reason why this is interesting is because here we see it's passed into the SQL connection, or the SQL query, without any quotes. So while we're not allowed to use quotes, we don't need quotes because we can directly inject into the query. So normally, if we look at a proper one, this one's not passing anything. If we look at a proper one, here we see that they pass ID with quotes around it. So we wouldn't be able to do anything because our query would all be attached to the ID variable. But in our vulnerable one, we see there's no quotes, so we can then just type whatever we want here. So usually you do an or an and statement. And that's why this thing right here is vulnerable to an SQL injection. So now that we know where the SQL injection is, next step will be to start looking for, will be to see how we get here. So it's in the item folder, and then it's view item.php. So if we go to our website and we go to, you see all my, when I did this, view, I probably should have cleared my browser history, item.php. You see we get redirected back to login.php. So we see here, if user is authenticated, if not, redirect to login page. If session ID level does not equal 1, redirect. So since we're not logged in, we're going to assume we have a level 0. But the interesting part about this code is this bottom part right here. It's this if statement responds with a 404 if ID responds with a 404 if ID doesn't equal anything. So what I did is we have our ID parameter. I'm actually going to do this through curl. We have our ID parameter. God damn it, I should clear my history. We'll get there in a second. We have our ID parameter. And I just started seeing what happens if we pass in like ID equals 1. And I see we get a 404 not found. Well, that's because I was a 404 not found. So then I started doing other characters. So what if I do like 100? I noticed I get a different result. It's 302 found. So if we go in our browser and we go ID equals 100, ID equals 100, it's still redirecting us, but we have a different code through curl, and that's because of this bottom portion here, which will take the result of ID and give us an HTTP response code of 404. So we have a way of knowing that if the item is there, it will return a 404 code, and if the item doesn't exist, it will return a 302. So a good example would be like if we did 4, we find it gives us a 404. But if we do 5, it gives us a 302. And since we have access to the database, we can see there are only 4 items. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's why once we get to the 5th item, it changes because there's no more items there. Does that make sense to everyone?
No, not at all. You're confusing me.
Okay.
No, I'm just fucking with you, man. I'm fucking with you. It's good.
Yeah?
No,
Everybody-
I totally get
You're
it.
good.
All right.
Then fuck you.
Okay, so now we have 2 pieces of information. We know how to return different information from the page. So with a positive one, we do ID equals 4. If it exists, it gives us 404. Or we could do, so I guess a better way is saying if it returns true, it will give us a 404, and if it returns false, it'll give us a 302. And we also know that this ID parameter is injected directly into the SQL syntax, so we don't need to use single quotes or double quotes or a semicolon to escape, which we wouldn't be able to do anyways because our ID parameter is getting filtered out with the MySQL real escape string. So now that we have this, and we have confirmed it's a blind SQL, we're going to want to try and return something else so we can extract data. So the easiest way to do this is a plus or 1 equals 1. Since we are assuming ID 5 is a false value and returns 302, and ID 4 is a true value and returns 404, we want to see what happens if we give it an OR statement and return a true value. And we see when we do that, we get a 404 when we pass in a true value. And if we pass in a false value, we get a 302. So now we know how we can ask the database is if the value we pass in is true or false. So the next step is the fun part, where we actually create our SQL syntax. So since they gave us access to the database, something we can do is we can go to a online SQL database. I guess you could do this, set it up locally as well, but we can basically take their entire db.sql file, copy it, and paste it into this if it ever loads. So that way we can test around with their actual SQL, with their actual database, so we can see the queries, whether true or false. So now that we've imported this, we can see there's like there's a user table, so we test to make sure, select star from user.
Semicolon.
Did I not do a semicolon? So yeah, well, we can do stuff like that anyways, is the point. I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm thinking. It's select star from user. I don't know why. And so now we have access to the database, right? So the point of like a code review isn't like, obviously we just take the password and move forward, but the point of code review is to find a vulnerability outside of them, already outside of the like database, or if they give you like the SSH password, you have to find a vulnerability outside of that. You're just getting more information for it, and you'll see why blind SQL is a lot better with database information, because now that we have this set up, something we can do is we can just take this. So this is what we're passing into the into our SQL injection statement, the ID equals, I guess here, the ID equals. So we can take it and we can practice our commands here. So we can do an OR 1 equals 1, and we'll see what the database returns for us. And we see there it returns the tables for the item, but if we do a 1 equals 2, we'll see that it should not work. Alright, well, this online database isn't the best. So what we're going to do is we're going to know that we have this OR statement, and we're just going to get rid of it. So what you do with a blind SQL injection is we have to extract information from the database one at a time using this kind of comparison, right? So this is a Boolean based blind injection. So we're going to do it a 1 equals 1 or 2 equals 2. And how we're going to do that is we're going to do a select star from user kind of approach, where we start with, like, say, the user table and then the username, and we're going to take the first letter of the username, and we're going to set up a brute forcing script where we do, like, the first letter is equal to A, and if it returns a false message, which we're going to tell our script, if it returns 302, then that's not true. But if it returns a 404, that's true, and we can save that value and continue on. So using substring for MySQL, we can do the substring. So instead of select star, we can do select username from user, and we get the admin user. Another thing we want to do is we want to do limit 1, so we only get one result, so we don't get confused. And I'm forgetting, normally you're going to want to do like ID or whatever they do, ID level.
Is that your primary key?
Sorry?
Like your primary key?
What do you mean, the ID level?
Yeah, so your ID level, would that technically be the primary key in this database?
Yeah, so like I think so I'm not sure what you mean by primary key, but we're going to want to target an administrator account. So we see like admin account is ID level 1 and customer account is ID level 2. So we do like select username from user and then where ID level equals 1, limit 1. So that way we get the result of one admin account and we guarantee it's an admin account with the ID level. Right? Because if like customer was imported first and we did limit 1, then we might be getting information on the customer, which is not as good. Right? We don't want the, I mean, the customer's user password might be useful, but if we can get the admin, that'd be so much better. So if we do this, we see we get the admin account, which is nice, but we can't. I guess one way you could do this, which wouldn't really be that good, which wouldn't work for passwords, is you would think, oh, well, I just compare this whole thing and be like, does it equal admin? And then you could brute force username and passwords. But you're not going to be able to extract like passwords, because what, you're going to guess the entire hash? That won't work. So we just take the first value, right? So if we're sticking with username, we're going to want to just take the A value. So how we do that in MySQL is we do a substring. We do substring on the username because this is the table, column? I forget the language. This is what we want to extract, right? We want to take the username table, row, whatever, and just get the A value. So we'll do username, and then we want to specify what we want. So we're going to do 1, 1, which I think we actually need a comma here. Is there a space? I don't think there's a space. So we're basically saying from the first row, take the first letter. So this should return us an A. No, I did something wrong. Select substring username 1, 1 from user. Select substring. I think I might need. Ooh. I think I might need substring in parentheses. Is that my issue? Yep. Alright, I need substring in parentheses. And so now we get the A. So, and if we change the second one to a 2, so now we're saying first row or whatever, position 2, this should return us a D. Is it like this? Did I do it wrong? Alright, so it's the first one we change. So this is the one we would change. So this, I think, specifies how many we want. So if we do like 3 here, we should get DMI, yeah. So this specifies how many we want, right? This specifies how many characters we want. So we always want 1 character, because that'll be easiest to brute force, since we know it'll likely be an like an A through Z, 0 through 9 character. And this specifies where in the thing we want. So 1 will be A, 2 will be D, 3 will be M, etc. So starting with the first one, we're going to want to say, does this equal A? So to do that, we have to wrap this entire thing in a select statement. And the reason for that is because the select state, this value right here, we know returns an A. So basically now what we're doing is we're doing select A equals A. But if without that, we do A equals A, and we have to have a select statement for this MySQL syntax, or it'll return an error. Oops. Oh, crap. And so I think this is looking good. And we get a 1, which is true. And if we do a false value, it will return us 0. Can you guys see this okay? Do I need to zoom in more?
That looks good for me.
Okay. So does that make sense to everyone, what we've done for this? So I know this seems like a long string, but it's very easy, right? So we're just breaking it down into a few parts. So we're doing select star from user. Well, we'll do select username. Select username from user, which we all know will just give us the all the usernames in the user table. And then instead of getting all the usernames, since we have a blind SQL and we can't extract information, we can only say, is this true, is this false? We have to do a substring on the username to get, so this is what we're doing, basically to get the A value, right? And then this junk at the end here is what we do to confirm what we're getting is an administrator account, and we're only going to be getting one. So that way we don't get returned a bunch of accounts. And so now we have a way to test this to see if it's true or false. So 1 true, 0 false. So now you'd probably be like, all right, let's send it. But we have an issue, which if you remember in our thing, we have filtering happening here, which is real escape string. So here we have quotes, and I'm like 95% sure we need quotes. Yeah, we need quotes around this. So we can't send this. So a workaround for this is to convert it to ASCII. So now we're going to convert it to ASCII, which will be an integer, and with coding you don't need integers, or in coding you don't need quotes around integers, and that's how we're going to get around that issue. So the ASCII value of the substring 11, so the first position of the username table for the account of an admin, only give us one value, is 97, which is the ASCII value of a lowercase a. So now we can do equals 97, send it, and we get true. And so this is how we're going to be extracting data from the database. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to set up a brute forcing script, which will iterate between 32 and 126 is the valid ASCII numbers. Oh my god, come on. You got a chart? Okay, this is useless. I'm like pretty sure it's 32 to 126, but I'll double check in a second. So what we can do is we can take this. We're going to probably have to URL encode it, which will be annoying. Just say something online, because I don't want to do burp because that'll URL encode every character. I just want to do spaces and maybe the equal sign. We'll try this. I'm not sure if this will work. So instead of the or 1 equals 1, we'll stick with the or statement, since we'll splitting this in two parts, right? We're doing the select star from item where ID equals 5, which is going to return false. And then we'll do an or statement of essentially a longer version of 1 equals 1, but we're comparing to see if we can get the it's not going to work. We're comparing to see if we can get the value of maybe I can do through burp through this actually, which would be best. We'll turn intercept on. Oh god, come on. Okay, you know what, we'll turn intercept off. We'll go to HTTP history. Time is this way. Just lost showed and stuff. And it's /item /view capital item dot php id equals 5. I think I sent the whole thing. And HTTP history gives us the 302. I'm actually going to add this to my scope to make it a lot easier. Alright, add that website to my scope. Come here, hit show only in scope items, and now we can only see nice stuff. Okay. So this is actually the exact same thing that we did. So if I Control-Shift-U to un-URL encode, can you guys still see okay, or should I zoom in more?
Looks fine.
Okay, I missed that 5. But to completely URL encode, you see it's the same payload of substring ASCII. Select substring ASCII. Alright, well that's not what we're doing. We'll copy this and delete this. So we need an OR statement, and then we're going to send in our thing. Maybe it was fine. Maybe I was reading it wrong. And Control-U to URL encode in burp, and send this.
You spelled OR wrong.
What did I spell wrong? Oh, I spelled OR
The
wrong?
word OR.
It's got a P. You're right. It's still a bad request. What am I doing wrong? No semicolon at the end because it'll give us a semicolon. Or ID 5 or select ASCII substring from user. I'm thinking maybe we only need pluses, otherwise it'll error us out. So let's just do this one at a time because I'm bad with everything else. Where ID level 1 limit 1 equals 97. Okay. Bad request. Your browser sent a request that the server could not understand. Alright, so we're just going to...
Are you sure the comma... Well, yeah, the comma's right. Never mind.
Alright, so that works. But this still gives us a bad request, which is not correct. Or select ASCII substring username 11 from user where ID level equals 1 limit 1 97. I'm not sure why it doesn't like this. There we go. Alright, I had an extra space for the HTTP. So 302 found, and if we change this to a false value, it still gives us 302 found. Y 5 or select ASCII username 11. From user where ID level. Alright, let's take this to curl, and maybe that'll help. Alright. I don't remember what I copied. I think I copied up to the 5. No, I didn't copy the 5. Alright, so we're just going to do this then. We are going to do copy this, delete this 5 or delete that, and we'll put the whole thing in quotes. Oh my god, what is the issue? What do you not like? You don't like the parentheses? Let's see here. ID equals 5 or U to URL encode. No, that's not right. Shouldn't be. Unless lowercase
Shouldn't
a.
the URL encode do something with the commas? Once it's URL encoded, shouldn't those commas change?
Which commas?
The 1, comma 1?
No, I think it should
Or am I
stay the
mistaken?
same. I'm
Okay.
thinking it's the parentheses maybe. Let's try a different URL encoder. Let me see here. Select. Let's try sending this through Burp actually. 302 found, and we have 97 here. 302 found. We are sending the correct value, right? ASCII table.
I think so.
I think so too. Do you see anything wrong, Eternal?
No, wondering why the fuck I don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's wrong with this. It should be working. Let's see here. Come on. Uh, 97, lowercase a. So that looks right. Let's go back to here. And let's run this one more time. Okay, and let's go here. Let's take the first part. Although I don't think this returns it properly for us. 5 or select ASCII substring. Oh, I know what I'm doing wrong. This entire thing has to be in quotes, right? We
No.
need the select here in quotes.
Really? I forgot.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
You mean parentheses, right?
Yeah, thank you, parentheses. I think we need the select statement here in parentheses, and where does it end? And then we need to do it here. And this, I think, will work. I always forget that we need the parentheses. Where did I copy to? 5?
Yes.
5 or... Alright, and I think this will get us what we want. There we go. Alright, it was the parentheses. So we have to wrap the entire thing in parentheses, or otherwise the SQL syntax won't like that. That's why having access to the database is really nice as well, because I was able to just copy this and then I sent it, and the error let me know that it started at the first select, so I looked there to see what I thought was missing, and you have to wrap this entire thing in parentheses. To be honest, I'm not really sure why, but you pretty much always have to. For every blind SQL I can think of off the top of my head, you pretty much have to wrap it in parentheses, just because that's how SQL syntaxing works. So if we go back here and we change 97 to whatever, 90, we get a 302. So now our next step is, I guess we could double check it with another value. So ASCII table, lowercase d is 100. 100, and we change this value to 2, and we get a 404. So we've confirmed that our blind SQL is working, and we've confirmed the correct syntax, which is this. So while it may be easy for like an admin or something, it'll be a lot harder to extract passwords. So that's why you're going to want to iterate one at a time. So to do that, we will use Python. I'm going to start by just saving this as... I should have not zip bombed my entire thing. I'll save this as blind sqli.py, so that way we get nice formatting. So the first thing we do is we import the request library, which, if you're unfamiliar, will essentially just is what Python uses, is a great Python library to go sorry, name was so loud. Is a great Python library to just go and is a great Python. Sorry, I'm blanking. Is a great Python library to connect to websites
It
and
handles
stuff.
the
And
HTTP request.
thank you very much, Knight. Exactly. All right. So, and sys will do for sys arguments. So we start by defining our first function of what's called SQLi, and we're going to use 2 arguments, our IP address, so we can make this script interchangeable, and the integer string, which we will use to iterate through our vulnerable SQL parameter. So we're going to do for j in range 32 to 126. So we're going to do for the range in j, and we're going to iterate through the numbers 32 and 126, which, if you look here, is the valid ASCII characters. So 32 starts with a space, 126 ends with this thing, that name I always forget. I'm sure a fine will tell me.
The fuck was it?
It's the squiggly line. I can't ever remember
Tilde.
the name. Thank you.
Tilde, dog.
Thank
Jesus.
you. All right. And then what I always like to do is I do proxies, and I'm doing an HTTP proxy on 127.0.0.1.80.80, which probably looks familiar to you guys, because this basically means every single request you send through the HTTP port of 127.0.0.1.80.80, which is my burp. Where do we define it in burp? I forget where we define in burp, but essentially, I forget where. Is it here? It's here. 127.0.0.1.80. So with intercept off, I can send my request or my script, and I can see everything I send through burp history. And so that way, if I make a mistake in my code, I can see exactly what was sent, and it's a lot easier to edit than just guessing blindly or trying to reread code. Okay, and now we are going to define our target, which is going to be HTTP%s, since we're going to do our IP. And then for us, it's going to be item view item.php, and then ID equals, and then that'll be equal to our vulnerable parameter. And now we need to define what these 2% s's are, which is IP, and then what we do is an injection string, and we're going to replace injection string with this, with char. And essentially what we're doing is, instead of calling an injection string, we're going to replace it with I don't know exactly what this is called, but we're going, instead of having to do a %s injection string, we can just put this in our script, which makes it a lot easier to iterate through. And we're going to tell that it is j. This goes at the end. And then we're going to do a request on that, on target, and I'm going to send everything through my proxy, so if I made a mistake, which I'm sure I will at some point, I can look through my burp history and see what I did wrong. So now our next thing that we do is we're going to have to determine, we're going to have to tell the script what to return, what is false, right? So if you have a nice like a normal SQL injection that like returns information on the screen like with an error, you can say, if this is in the text, return us this, or equals return us this, but we don't have that. What we're using to identify is the 302 found and the 404 not found. So when we send a 404 request, that is a true value. But when we send anything else, that is a false value. So what we're going to do is say, so R is what we're sending. So we're going to say if 404 in R dot, and then we have to convert status code. No, that's not going to work. We'll do this. We'll do R2 equals R dot status code. And we're going to convert this entire thing to a string, because this will return an integer. And when I was doing this box, for whatever reason, trying to pass this as an integer gave me a ton of errors, so I just changed it to a string. So then I just did if 404 in R2 return J, so we will return the ASCII value if it returns us a 404. So for example, so for example, when we do this, and for our first parameter, when we return a when we send a 97, which is 1 here, when it sends a 97 and it finds 404, it'll return 97, and later on we'll decrypt it to let us know that it's working, or we'll decrypt it to let us, so we don't have to manually convert ASCII characters. It will have a converter for us. And then if it iterates all the way through 32 and 126 and doesn't return any results, we're going to do return none. So that just means that we're done. So once it hits admin, once it finishes admin and hits the end value, it'll go through the 32 through 126 one more time. It'll see it won't ever hit this if 404 in R2, and it'll hit this return. Okay, so now we're going to need to define our injection string. So we have how we're sending it. So next what we're going to do is we're going to define the injection string, which will take 3 parameters of R, INJ, and IP. And we're going to first declare a variable called extracted, which is going to be the extracted value of whatever we return from here, but we have to declare it as a null value first. And then we're going to do for I in range 1 to, we'll say 50, which basically this is going to say iterate through it 50 times, and iterate through actually we're not there yet. We're iterating through I 50 times, so we're going to do injection string equals, and now we're going to input our injection string. And another great thing about the Python request library is it'll deal with all the URL encoding for us. So we just need to send it here. So this is our injection string. Now we have to tell it a few things. One thing we do is we're going to change this to a %s, which will become more clear later on. We're going to change this to a %d, which is basically going to be our I value. So if you remember this value here, we're iterating through, we're starting at 1, which is A, 2 will be D, so we're incrementing by 1, which is going to be our I value. And so we can make this whatever we want, right? You can make this like fucking whatever. Doesn't matter, because once our SQI loop up here doesn't return anything, it won't, it'll kill this for loop. But we'll do 50 because it's reasonable, I guess. And then the last thing we need to change is this 97, because this is what we want to be iterating the J. So if you remember, up here we did injection string and we replaced it with the string value of J. Don't do that. So all we have to do here is just do char, and it looks good. Now we just have to define I and j and I have to wrap those in quotes. So I'm pretty sure you guys can guess what I and j will be. You can change it around, make it longer or shorter, but instead of just doing username, I'm going to set it up so we can do username, password, or anything else we want. You could even do it like here, right? You could do another one here, and so you could do it from more than just one table at a time, but we'll do one table for now. And now we need to tell the script what to do with the value we get. So we'll do retrieve value equals SQLI, and it'll take the IP and injection string. Oops. And injection string. And then if retrieved oh my god, value. So we're saying if retrieve value returns true. So if j basically gets a hit, we're going to extracted. So our previously null value of extracted, we're going to set that plus equals to the character of retrieved value. So this will decrypt the ASCII, and then we can basically get the return value of the decrypted ASCII. And then we're going to make it look pretty. So instead of it returning one line, at a time, basically what we're going to do is we're going to have it very pretty write out everything. So that way it looks nice, and it's not going to just print one letter at a time. We're just going to use sys.standout to flush it. And then we need an else clause here, and we're basically just going to print done and break. Oops, break. And then we're going to return the extracted. So we have our injection string that we set up with two arguments, which an S value, which we will define later on, and the D value, which is the I range. And basically what we're saying is every time J gets a hit, we're going to increment I by 1, and if J doesn't get a hit, we're going to kill it. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, man, kill J.
Cool. Alright, so now we need our main function. And we're going to do one argument we need is our IP address. So we're just going to say need IP for easy functionality. And then we'll define IP as sys.rv1. And so we're basically just, when we run our script, we're going to need like the IP address. Actually, I should probably kill this, right? Just do sys.exit -1. Alright, so now we're going to fill in the %s values. So let's look at db.sql, and we'll do username and password. So we'll do print getting username, and then we'll do query equals username, and then we're going to send this into the inject function with the arguments of query. So we're basically setting our query here, and we need to also declare the IP address. And then
Did you just come off mute to vape into the microphone?
Sorry.
you're good, man. And we'll do print getting password. And we'll do password equals, or we'll set a new query equal to password. And then we'll do password equals inject query IP. And then we'll do print creds are I guess we'll do %s and %s, and we'll do percent username password. And then we just have to do if name equals if name equals main run main. Alright, does anyone have any questions about the script before we run it and see if I messed up? What don't you like? Expected parentheses. Quest.
I don't think I was paying attention to whenever you got into the password part. Like, is that already clear text in the database that you're running after you query the username?
This CHR here will decrypt the ASCII for us.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you let me know exactly what you're confused about, why is this? I have parentheses. Expected closing parentheses right there. What?
Okay.
If
So
you
this
let me-
table has username and password, is what you're saying? I don't know. We focused so much on the username. Maybe I don't know.
No,
Read right
that's
through.
my issue.
Like
Like a
have a
copy of your
password.
ID?
So right here, like since this is a white box review, we have our database. So what I did is, since they gave us the db.sql, instead of like giving us like an SSH access to the database, I copied this entire thing, and I went to an online tool and just pasted it, and then just hit run to import their entire database. And then I just checked, like I just looked at this, right? It's going to be like user or users. So create table user. So I just select star from user.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just saw the table of passwords. So.
Yeah.
I didn't see the table of
Yeah,
passwords
so-
before. I was like, well, yeah, how are you pulling that? And then,
User,
okay, yeah, it's
password,
right there.
email, and then that's why we're doing ID level as well.
Okay. Yeah,
Alright.
that's all. I missed that. Yeah.
What else are you saying as errors? Retrieved value. I don't know what's wrong here. No, that's wrong. I don't need that. Okay, so I think the script is good to go. Let's test it out and see what I did wrong. Python 2 blind sql.py, and then we need the IP address, which is this. I did pass in the IP though. Let's see here. Oh, I did one. You need two. You need two here, which because technically, when you do, you need two because you need two when you only want a single argument, because technically Python counts the script itself as an argument. So technically, we're passing two things into this Python 2 argument, if that makes sense. All right. File blind SQLi and main username query IP inject takes 3 arguments. Oh, I don't want to do R. So one thing you could do, which I didn't, is you could change this to R. And then we could do like something down here. We do like 100 or whatever, in case your databases are different. But I just hard coded it because this is just straightforward. All right, so now it's running, and we'll see if we can get the information from the database. This will take a minute to run, so if anyone has questions, let me know.
Yeah, so what are we hacking?
Very funny. I should probably do that on a new line, huh?
I was just about to come off mute and say that.
Put that on a new line. So instead of just waiting for this whole thing to run, something you're going to notice is we're not going to be able to log in with the password. So this box was specifically designed for the OSWE, and they say in the OSWE it's not a password cracking course. So you have to find other ways to log in. So one of the most common ways to do that is to use a forgot password link. And sometimes when you do a forget password, it will save the forget password token in the database. So what we're going to do is we're going to go search for forgot password. See if they have that. No. You know what? This isn't very big, so we'll just go to the main thing. I mean, we just go here /login/reset password. Login, reset password. And here we see that when we do the reset password, it's going to generate a token, and it's going to update token with that token. And if we scroll down, we see that we can use that token to log in. So we don't have to crack any passwords. All we have to do is send a token, a password reset request, use our blind SQL to steal the token, and then we can update the admin's password. So if we do admin, so now we see it says success, password reset link has been sent to your email, please check it out. And we know we need the token value from the users. And if we look here, we see there is a token field. So since we don't have SSH access, we can't compare it, but all we have to do is we go here and we'll do it right here. We'll do print getting token, and then we'll do token, or we'll have to set up another query equals, ooh, I hit something. Query equals token, and then we'll do token equals our inject function, and we'll do query and IP are the things we have to pass in. Why is this a different color? Token is not accessible. Yep, I'm just defining it. I think that's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to run this again, and we'll see if we can extract the token, and then we know we have to go to /get hostname, which is going to be our IP address of whatever we have, 192 whatever, and then do password reset !token, and then whatever the token value we retrieve is. So we'll copy this, we'll go here, place it, and it's slowly getting our token.
Is there any way you can speed it up by importing threads?
I mean, I could, but I'm super lazy and the token's not that long. But yeah, you definitely could do that. And I think Python 3 you can do it a lot better as well. But Python 2, the URL was not found. That doesn't make sense. So right, I'm dumb. So if we look at, it says get hostname. So if we look at do password reset.php, it's under the login folder. So we'll have to do /login/do password reset.php. And success, valid token provided. You can change your password. So I'll change to like admin. And now we can log into the admin account with admin, and we've taken over the administrator account. Does anyone have any questions about that blind SQL? Okay.
Well, I got one question about your Python, though.
That's not what I like. Yeah, go ahead.
How did you get it to print out sequential spaces? Don't you have to like append it to a list to get it to print out horizontally?
sys.standout.flush does that.
Okay. Okay.
Make sense to everyone? Cool. So now that we have that, we are going to do... We have access to the admin account. Flag 1. I don't do flags for Vulnhub. We can poke around and see what we can do. We can add a new user, which, I mean, I guess we could do it for persistence if we want to make like a secondary admin account in case once the admin came back and changed his password back. I guess we do that. That's not super useful. Items. We see here right away, first thing I notice is there's pictures here, which normally lets me think we can do a file upload vulnerability. So that's one of the first things I do. So we'll do that. We'll do file, enter price. I don't know, maybe that has to be an integer. Browse, and I'll just do, this isn't really important, but I'll just do any PHP file. I mean, if you like are doing an actual test, don't do like their index, you know. Hit submit, and oops, file type not allowed. So let's, since we have access to all the code, let's see what happens with this error. And so we just write to new item.php, which is another way we could have got there. Item, add item. I guess it links to new item. So I mean, if you went to add item, I'm sure it would have linked you back here. And so the first thing we see is blacklist extensions. Basically a bunch of PHP ones, SHTML and stuff. But the more important part is this MIMES variable we see. This is why I like VS Code. I mean, I know they all do that, but you can double click it and we can see that here it's looking for blacklist extensions. So if it's not in the array of blacklist extensions, and it's in the array of MIMES, so if it's not any of these file types, and it is these file types, let us upload it. Otherwise, don't let us upload it. So you can play around with this for a while, and you're not going to really get anywhere because this is decent enough, right? I tried like magic bytes and everything, didn't get anywhere. But if you look at the code, it says new item.php. But one thing we're allowed to do here is we're allowed to edit items. So edit item.php is also an option. So for whatever reason, if we go to edit item.php, no. See, they do this in weird places. Where do they do this? We'll just look for blacklist. Update item.php. Here we still see the blacklist extensions, but the one thing we notice isn't here is the MIMES, right? The MIMES variable. What's new item? And I lost my other one. Is this MIMES, right? So basically, it's only checking to see if these file extensions are going to be there. So if we do like hack tricks, file extension, file upload, bypass, PHP extensions or whatever. Is there a better one? No, this one's pretty good. Here's some PHP ones, right? Since this is a PHP web server, we'll have to use PHP for it to execute everything. So there's a few here, and the one that works is .var. If you don't know, .var is like a compressed PHP library. Or it's not a library, it's just a compressed
PHP archive.
Thank you, PHP archive. Thank you, Knight. So yeah, it's just a compressed PHP archive. So it will execute the code. So all we need to do is put a file extension type of .var, and then we can upload PHP code. So I'm lazy, and I'm just going to copy. Web shells. No, I don't want a full PHP reverse shell. CP user share web shells PHP. We'll do PHP backdoor. PHP backdoor.php. And if you want to see what this is, I mean, I think it comes standard on every Kali. It's just a PHP backdoor. Pretty standard. So the only thing we have to do is we have to rename this to a var extension. And then if we go to here, and since it's only checking the blacklist, it's not checking if we're also doing it. I'm in the wrong directory. OSWE labs. No, I made a new directory for this one. That's at the top. We're doing by date. And we hit submit. We see that item has been successfully edited, and so now we have access immediately right here to it, but we can also look through the code to see where it sends things, which will normally be /uploads. It should tell us though. Let's see here. Move upload file to image/image name. So I guess it's /images, or is it images? What was it? Image. Where is it sending it? Move file, image / whatever. We can just right click and go to copy image location. Oh, it's /item /image. And then this is messy, but why isn't this working? Interesting. Looks like when we send it, it changes the entire URL. Since it's a var file, I guess it's not executing completely properly, but I'm pretty sure it's just C. I thought it was C for this. This isn't looking great. We could grab a different file. PHP reverse shell one-liner. No. I guess not reverse shell. I guess backdoor. Sure. Sounds good. Sorry?
No, I thought that you saved it on like your directory, remember? When I gave it to you? You made a special directory in PHP reverse shell.
I don't remember exactly. But anyways, I think this should work. For whatever reason, this one's not getting processed properly. Can I just go back a few times? This one's named shell.var. Submit, and then it's /item /image. Oh, really? It doesn't even do a listing for us. Alright, well, that's annoying. So I'm just going to do the same thing of copy image location, paste, and this is cmd equals ls. And there we go. Code execution. And so...
Okay, neat though.
Hmm?
It's very neat though.
Thanks, buddy. Okay, And so that's blind SQL with insecure file upload. I know we went through that pretty quick, so if anyone has questions about any of the stuff we did, let me or Eternal can also answer questions. No.
I have something.
Yeah.
Also, that is pretty cool. Like, what you can do after this, I don't know if you're gonna do it right after, is you code it on Python and you add like a command parameter.
Mm.
So then like it immediately runs like hostname or whatever you want.
Yeah, yeah. I
Right.
mean, yeah, exactly. You could do that. You can code this entire thing through Python to automate the entire
Yep.
exploit and get a reverse shell, in theory, or code execution if you wanted. Anyone else have any questions about like the script or anything? All right, cool. So I guess we'll call it. I mean, you guys would do whatever you guys want, but that's pretty much how you would exploit a pretty typical blind SQL and find it through code review. And then the file upload was just a little bonus. Right? If you didn't have access to the code repository, I guess just start throwing, just start throwing stuff at it. But that's why code review it could be so much better, instead of doing it with a black box, because we were able to tell which files it accepted and which it didn't. Cool. So I'll be around for a bit if anyone thinks of any questions. But yeah, thanks for listening, I guess.
Thank you so much for explaining.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a really good box and it's very profitable for people who want to learn into what exploitation. Like we did source code review, detecting the vulnerability, actually, how do you say it, and scripting it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I mean, if anyone has something they want covered next week, let me know and we can do that. Otherwise, we'll do, I don't know, I'll think of something. But if anyone has a specific exploit or a box or something, let me know and we can go through that. Alright, well, with that, I'm going to stop the screen